Justice Thomas, SCOTUS refusal to hear Pennsylvania election cases is inexplicable. Coming up here, his thoughts on the fiasco that was the election of 2020. Coming up on Cordisco's Corner. Hi, folks. Welcome to Cordisco's Corner. Are you tired of the same old blah, 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 blah from the media? Do you like unfiltered commentary? Would you like to go back to the days when our rights meant something? Well, you've come to the right place, Cordisco's Corner. The fight to get back the ideals of our founders will be long and hard. Please support the channel by subscribing. And as always, thank you for your support. Hi, folks. Welcome back to Cordisco's Corner from townhall.com. Katie Pavlich, I like her a lot. She wrote a good article, too. Justice Thomas, SCOTUS refusal to hear Pennsylvania election case is inexplicable. And I agree. This is what the Supreme Court is for. These huge decisions that affect millions of people is right up SCOTUS's alley. Let's read on. The Supreme Court ruled 6-3 to reject the review of two 2020 Pennsylvania presidential cases Monday, but Justices Samuel Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas believe they should have been given hearings. Now, my understanding is, correct me if I'm wrong, that it takes 4 justices to hear a case and not 5, a majority, because there's 9 on the court. This is the SCOTUS blog. SCOTUS declines to take up a pair of leftover cases from the 2020 election. They involve the authority of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court to extend the state's mail-in ballot deadline. Thomas, Alito, and Gorsuch say the court should have granted review. I agree. U.S. Justice refuses to review Gorsuch. Let's read on with the article. In his dissent, Justice Thomas argued mass mail-in voting, which was conducted in Pennsylvania for the first time ahead of the 2020 presidential election in November, combined with election rules being written last minute, makes the process prone to fraud and mistrust. Now, he's not saying there was. He's not saying if there was any FRAUD that it would be enough to change the outcome. That's not his point. It's the mistrust in the system. Mistrusting in the system is very, very dangerous for a constitutional republic / democracy. The Constitution gives to each state legislature authority to determine the manner, in quotation marks, of federal elections. Yet both before and after the 2020 election, non-legislative officials in various states, and that's the key phrase, non-legislative officials in various states took it upon themselves to set the rules instead. As a result, we received an unusually high number of petitions and emergency applications contesting those changes. The petitions here present a clear example. The Pennsylvania legislature established an unambiguous deadline, I always have trouble saying that word, deadline for receiving mail-in ballots 8 p.m. on Election Day. Thomas wrote, dissatisfied, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court extended that deadline by 3 days. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I don't believe they have the authority, and I think Justice Thomas is saying the legislature only has that authority. The court also ordered officials to count ballots received by the new deadline, even if there was no evidence, such as a postmark that the ballots were mailed by Election Day. That decision to rewrite the rules seemed to have affected too few ballots to change the outcome of any federal election. So he's not claiming that the rule changes change the outcome, but you're going to see in a minute why he thinks they should have heard the case. But that might not be the case in the future. These cases provide us with an ideal opportunity to address just what authority non-legislative officials have to set election rules. Non-legislative officials. And there you have it. That's the crux of the whole thing. And to do so before the next election cycle, the refusal to do so is inexplicable. Let me read that again. These cases provide us with an ideal opportunity to address what authority non-legislative officials have to set for election rules, and to do so well before the next election cycle. The refusal to do so is inexplicable. One wonders what this court waits for. This is Justice Thomas continuing. We failed to settle this dispute before the election and thus provide clear rules. Now we again fail to provide clear rules for future elections. Bad idea. I'll tell you, I know I was a little tough on one of my episodes and said that the justices that refused to hear the Pennsylvania cases went against their oath, but I'm sorry, I still believe it. The decision to leave election law hidden beneath a shroud of doubt is baffling. By doing nothing, we invite further confusion and erosion of voter confidence. And erosion of voter confidence is deadly to a constitutional republic. Deadly. If nobody has faith in the system, it falls apart very quickly. Our fellow citizens deserve better and expect more from us, he continued. It's unbelievable. Daniel Horowitz tweeted, "This is what happens every election. They refuse to deal with the problem at hand, but it never gets fixed for the next time because it's a moot point now. This is how the lower federal courts in some states have screwed up legislators in election law for the last 15 years. And there's the petition there. It denied hearing it. I'll tell you, honestly, it's Katie wrote a good story here, and she's absolutely right, viewing Justice Thomas's request. Whether you like Justice Thomas or not is besides the point. The man's right. Okay. Some had petitions to the Supreme Court, and they says, well, you can't file them now because the election process isn't over yet. Okay. And they waited. Well, you can't file them now because it's too late. They never dismissed any of these cases or refused to hear them on the merits. In other words, you're full of crap. That's on the merits. That's my definition of the street language of on the merits means you're full of crap and you have no case. And there wasn't a lower case ruling, of my knowledge, from the Attorney General in Texas. But I digress. Usually they'll not hear a case, which basically means they agree with the court that just ruled out of they're trying to appeal from. It's not the same. This case was brought right to the Supreme Court directly, if I'm not mistaken, except that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court did hear it, but I don't think any other federal courts heard it. And he's right. Perception is reality. I was involved in local politics for years. Believe me, I know. Perception is reality. That's why I think both of those Georgia seats went Democrat, if you want to know the truth. I think a lot of Republicans in Georgia stayed home because they thought, doesn't matter if I vote, there's just so much fraud in the system that what's the point of voting? They're going to win it anyway. And I think they said 325,000 regular voters that were Republicans stayed home. That's a lot. And these percentages the Democrats are winning by are tiny, 1.5, half. I think Joe Biden won Pennsylvania by, what was it, less than 1%? I'm trying to remember the number off the top of my head. Let me read part of this again. The decision to rewrite the rules to have affected too few ballots to change the outcome of any federal election, but that might not be the case in the future. These cases provide us with an ideal opportunity to adjust what authority non-legislative officials have to set election rules, and to do so before the next election cycle. To refuse to do so is inexplicable. We're only one justice short. He should have heard the case. It's not going to throw out any elections. They're not going to put somebody back in as president or congressman or governor or senator or anything. They were going to rule, can a non-legislative body, i.e. the election boards in the state and the counties can change the rules, and I call it making it up as you go along. And that was basically, if you read the Time magazine article about the election, they call it the shadow government secret cabal, that they had legislative bodies in the country by state change rules and have local election officials change rules without the legislature and spent hundreds of millions of dollars in influence to do so. Justice Thomas wants the court to decide, is that okay? And what are the rules going to be next year? They're not set. They're not written down because the legislature never approved a lot of the changes. One wonder what the court waits for. We failed to settle this dispute before the election, thus provide clear rules. That's right. You're making them up as you go along. Now, some people might not like that phraseology of it, but in essence, that's what it is. By doing nothing, we invite further confusion and erosion of our voter confidence. That's bad. That's bad, folks. I didn't realize there was 3 that had it. I thought it was just Justice Alito and Justice Thomas. So, me chastising Justice Gorsuch in an earlier episode, I apologize. It was Justice Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Justice Clarence Thomas that wanted to hear the case. I stand corrected. Sorry, Justice Gorsuch. It's, I don't know. I don't want to think this, and there's a lot of people think, a lot of people a lot smarter than myself, is that President Trump, or former President Trump, took the lead on who to appoint to the Supreme Court from Mitch McConnell in the old school GOP neocons. And that was a huge mistake. They're the old dug-in GOP mentality that has brought the Republicans to almost extinction in a lot of ways. And this is where the new Republican Party, i.e. the MAGA party, has pretty much tried to take it over for and throw out the old school Republicans who just don't know how to fight back, who just don't want to make waves, who just want to keep their heads down, keep their seats, make a lot of money, maybe put in a piece of legislation once in a while, and bitch and complain about the fact they're in the minority. And I'll tell you, I was on city council here locally in upstate New York for 8 years. The first 4 years I was on city council, I was a Democrat, and we were in the minority. I'm not a Democrat anymore. I switched in 2013. But it's a lot easier to complain and whine when you're in the minority about what the majority is doing wrong. And then the next term, the next 4-year term, it flipped over dramatically and went from 5-4 Republican Democrat to 7-2 Democrat Republican. It's a hell of a lot harder when you have the majority because you don't have to change anything. You can just complain and whine and bitch to the other side what they're doing wrong. It's a lot easier. So it's tough. It's tough out there. Justice Thomas is right. And that's the bitching and complaining and being the minority is something that the GOP seems to like, at least a lot of them, and makes their workload a lot less, that's for sure. Remember that farce? And now a Republican, I chastised him for this. What was it, 17 times or 27 times or whatever the hell it was that they put up in the House when they were in the minority in the House of Representatives? Repeal and replace Obamacare. Repeal and replace. Repeal and replace. And they knew it was going to fail. It was just for show. And then when the Republicans took over, first year being 17, the election of 2016, November, 2 years went by. Where was their replace? Where was their replacement? They didn't have one because they were playing politics before and they got caught with their pants down and everybody saw it. And everybody blamed Donald Trump for the midterm election losses in 2018. In fact, it was the old GOP members. They want to keep their workload to a minimum and just bitch and complain to the majority. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm a Republican, but I criticize them as well. But they're not really as crazy as the progressives are. But yeah, they count people with 17, 27 votes for repeal and replace. And these same entrenched GOP members, to get back to the point, are the ones that put the names up for the Supreme Court. And former President Trump appointed 3 of them. And as you can see on the names there, only one of them out of the 3. I'm incredibly disappointed. Where's Justice Kavanaugh? Where are the other justices? It's supposed to be what, 6-3? And the most you can get is 3? I expected out of Justice Roberts, to be honest with you. But he only needed 4. He needed 1 more. And they couldn't do it. Or they wouldn't do it is probably more accurate. To say I'm disappointed is an understatement of the world. And it would have been a hell to pay, depending how they ruled. But what is going to happen is half the people are going to hate your guts depending on what the ruling is. And the other half is going to say yay. But if you rule the other way, the other half hates your guts and the other half says yay. But if you do nothing, you don't rock the boat, you don't make anybody mad. But it doesn't serve the country very well, and it doesn't serve the people in the country. That's why I said they went against their oath. So Justice Samuel Alito, Justice Neil Gorsuch, and Justice Clarence Thomas, kudos to you for doing what the Supreme Court is supposed to do. And to the other 6, shame on you. And until next time, folks, goodbye and good luck.